Students, in the previous classes, we have gone on through the topics Introduction to Python, the data types in Python, the conversion of data types from one data type to another data types, operators in Python, precedence of operators, decision making in Python, and loops in Python. In loops, we have learnt about while loop and for loop. There are two things to be remembered, that there are two statements in loops called as break statement and continue statement. Break or continue can only be used in loops, that is while loop or for loop. When the iteration is going on, when we give a break there at a particular condition, then seeing the break, the loop comes out of the loop. But when there is a continue statement, the continue statement makes the loop to run from the starting again. That means simply remember that when we see continue, the loop goes on to the top. When we see break, the loop comes out of the loop. So these are the two things we have to learn while studying about loops. Now, for today's topic, we are going to learn about the functions in Python. Functions in Python is the first topic in Unit 2 for BSc Computer Science students as prescribed by Shatavana University revised syllabus. As you know, myself K.S.Praneeth Chowdary from the Department of Computer Science, SRR Government Arts and Science College, Karimnagar. So for today's topic, we are going to study about the functions in Python. Function is a block of organized reusable code that is used to perform a single related action. In simple words, function is a subprogram that performs a specific task. So, for easily understanding, function is a block of program within a program, and these functions provide better modularity for application. Functions also support a high degree of code reusing. Then what is the purpose of a function in a program? When we are going to write a 5 or 6 lines program that is going on repeated in the program for many number of times, then these 4 or 5 lines can be merged into a function with a single line, and we can call that all the 4 or 5 lines whenever we want with a single line. So function is a block of statements that perform a particular task in a program. Now coming to the types of functions in Python. Python supports 2 types of functions. One is the built-in functions and the second one is user-defined functions. Built-in functions are called as predefined functions, and user-defined functions are created by the user. So remember that Python supports 2 types of functions. One is the built-in functions, which indicate that the functions are already defined in Python. And the second one is user-defined functions. These are to be created by the user. So the functions which are newly created by the programmer or the user, those functions are called as user-defined functions, and the functions which are already existing in Python application, and when we use those predefined Python functions, those are called as built-in functions. Now we are going to learn about how to define a function, or how to write a function, or what are the rules that are to be followed while writing Python functions. All these 3 answers have the same answer. How do you define a function in Python, or what is the way for writing a function in Python, or what are the rules that are to be followed while defining a function in Python. Function blocks begin with the keyword def followed by the function name and parenthesis. So when you see the word def in a function, then that indicates that the creation of function has started in the same line. To the right side of def, that is def, the keyword, you see the name of the function, and after the function name there will be an open parenthesis which contains the parameters or arguments, and after that the parenthesis will be closed followed by a colon. So what are these parameters, or what are these arguments that are to be placed in the parenthesis? Parenthesis contains parameters or arguments. Parameters or arguments. Arguments are the values that are sent from the main program to the function program. So we can also define the parameters inside these parentheses. The first statement of a function can be an optional statement. the documentation string of the function or doc string. That means you can use your own word for the documentation part here, that is optional. So as we see on the screen, the code block within every function starts with a colon and is indented. The statements return exits in a function, optionally passing back an expression to the caller. Here function name will be in the main program and the function name will be in the function block. So the name of the function which appears in the main program is called as the caller function, and the name of the function that appears after the main function, that is called as the callee function. So here the values that are sent from the main program to the subprogram are called as arguments, and the values that are sent from the subprogram passing answers to the main program, those are called as the return values. So here we see a return statement with no arguments is same as return none. So what is return none? A return statement with no arguments is same as return none. Now we are seeing the syntax or the example of Python here. The syntax contains the word def, which is a keyword, name of the function and the parameters inside the parenthesis, and after closing the parenthesis we see a colon there. So now you see the example here. Def is the keyword, print me is the name of the function, and the parameter that is inside the parenthesis is str. Now what is this str? Str is the sentence that is given in the block there. This prints a passed string into the function. So whenever we want to write this 8-letter or 8-word sentence, just we have to call print me, that is print str. Print str. So str by default contains all these 8-word sentence inside it. Then no arguments have been passed from the main program to the subprogram. So this is a statement with return none. Now, how do we call a function, or how a function is called? Here we see that when we are defining a function, while defining a function we only give the name, specifies the parameters that are to be included in the function, and structures the blocks of code. Once the basic structure of a function is finalized, that means the designing of the function is accomplished, we can execute it by calling it from another function or directly from the Python prompt. This can be done any number of times. There is no limit that a function should be called only this number of times. So a function can be called from another function any number of times, or directly from the Python prompt any number of times. Let us see the example of a function. Here, print me is a function which does not have any arguments. So, the below given are the two statements in the body of the print me function. Print me function has two sentences here. One is I am the first call to user defined function. Again, second call to the same function. This will be a confusion thing because whenever you give print me, the system has to search for what to be printed. So, designing the function in a very perfect manner is very good for using functions in Python. So, Python functions are similar to the functions that are in C language, but when you see about the calling function and the caller function, there will be a slight difference in between them. So with this we close the class of functions, and for the next class we are going to study about what are the ways of calling a function, or what are the different parameter passing techniques in functions. Just before we close this class, have a look on the screen for a few minutes, then we'll close the class. You can see the definition here. What the function does and what the function supports. Just have a look on the screen. The next slide shows us the types of functions which Python supports. Here in this slide we see how to define a function or how to write a function. What are the rules that are to be followed while writing a function in Python programming. Remember that the function, when we are going to define a function, def is the keyword. Next comes the name of the function. The next comes the open parenthesis. Then we have to write the arguments. Then we have to close the parenthesis, and a colon is to be included there. So this is the syntax of writing a code in Python. Now you can see the syntax of function here and the example of declaring a function here. You just observe the example. There you see the word def, then print me is the name of the function, str is the parameter or argument. So the body of the function contains a sentence that has this prints a past string into this function. So that is actually str. So whenever you use the word print str, then the whole sentence containing 8 words gets printed using the Python prompt. So now, how do we call a function, or what is the procedure for calling a function? The function will be called from the main program, and the line which is calling the function program is called as the caller function, and the function which is being called from the main program, that is called as the callee function. So defining a function only gives it a name, specifies parameters that are to be included in the function. But once the basic structure of the function is finalized, we can execute it by calling it from another function or directly from the Python prompt. We can call a function within the same program or another program any number of times. There is no limit for a function to be called only this number of times. So a function can be called any number of times. So let us meet again for tomorrow's class. Just have a review on the topics of function. Thank you.